Hello everybody, welcome back to the Metal Mill 52 workshop. My name is Bill. Appreciate you being along this journey, this year-long journey of me building the Quorn Tool and Cutter Grinder. As you can see here, I've got all the main pieces that have been machined for a long time. I've taken them apart, I've taken all of the hardware off, and that's what you see in the bags back here. Each one little sandwich bag is carefully labeled. I've got the hardware that goes with the respective part in there. The handles have all got Loctited to their threaded studs, and each one of them has a custom-made brass, in most cases, spacer or washer, if you will, that enables it to be just the right setting. And if you'll stay with me for the next 30 minutes or so, you'll see what I'm talking about, because that's what this episode is all about, is custom fitting the hardware to these cast pieces for the base. And my next step after this, this is my little intro here. I've finished all of this. I'll be starting on the paint and body work, so I'll bring you along for that in the next episode. But this next 30 minutes or so should be very interesting if you want to see how the parts and pieces of the Quorn look all together and how the little control surfaces mate together and lock together. So stay with me. I hope you enjoy the video. If you like it, please just give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please pass the word to your friends. I am trying to grow the channel, and I hope this content is interesting. If you have questions, please go ahead and ask, and I'll do my best to answer for you. Thanks, everybody. As I mentioned in some previous episodes, the next thing I'm working on is getting the ball handles installed and the proper washer spacing. I do have, happily, I've got some brass stock left over that I can use to make custom length washers so that the ball handles engage at exactly the right spot. The good news, I'm almost done with the process for the base. This part, this ball handle is done. It locks up great right there, so that's a good position for it. This one, I played around with a stack of washers and it locks up right here, so that's going to be good. This one here that controls the tilt, it basically just needed one steel washer and it's good to go, so real happy about that. The next thing, I've got the two major ball handles that need to be adjusted are here. This one is becoming problematic because it's almost impossible to adjust, to fine-tune the ball handle. You can't flip it around and tighten it up because it hits the table, so I have a solution for that I'll show in the next segment. And this one here, I realized I had never uncrazy glued this, and so probably tomorrow I'll get the heat gun out and pull this one out, and then I can split the cotter and adjust the washers. So I'll bring you back when I show you my solution for adjusting this one. My solution for freeing up the area around the ball handle so I could get it properly tight was to first loosen it a little bit and remove the rotating base. That's this piece over here. Set that aside, and the key is with the split cotters, you have to have that 1/2 inch shaft or a 1/2 inch shaft in place in order to provide the proper tightening sequence, because you're basically, as you tighten, you're pulling on the back half and squeezing the top half together. So that's the purpose of having the threaded portion, the threaded rod, and the washers that all provide the proper tension. So what I did after I took that out, I put in a piece of 1/2 inch steel and I put some blue tape around it so that it wouldn't flop down before the handle was adjusted. And let's see, so pull that out, show it to you. Not much to it, just a piece of 1/2 inch steel that takes the place of the stem of the rotating base. The other thing that I did was to remove the ball handle, which I've already figured out that all that needs, this ball handle here, that for the tilting bracket, all it needs is an ordinary one steel washer, so that will remain in there. And taking that out gives me, and the table off, the rotating base off, gives me the freedom of movement to rotate this ball handle all around and get it tightened up on the split cotter. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not done with this obviously, but it looks like the thickness of 3 washers is the right answer for this piece. So I'm going to leave that as is, and this part and over here I'll be making custom brass washers for, and possibly this part as well. But I need to heat this up, I need to take all this apart, heat this up, and then with a heat gun and pull that out that's glued in here. Pull out the brass cotter that's not split yet. So pull it out, put it in the lathe, and split it so that I can do the same adjustment with this one that I did with this just now and the others. Just shooting a quick video here, a recap before I take this apart, because I do need to take this all apart, take these pretty ball handles off so that I can heat this piece up, go put it in the vise and pound it out. So to recap, this one here has 3 washers on it. This one just has 1, and this one over here, it has 2. So my thought is anything that has more than 1 washer, I'll make a little brass stack for it. So there's my little video record, and we'll get ready to take this all apart so that we can get that piece out. Well, it's been so long since I made this part that I forgot that I had already split the cotters here. Interesting thing though, it was a little snug trying to pull it all apart, so I did have to tap it out and so forth. So what I'm going to do is run it over with some sandpaper and WD-40 just to remove any ridges here, and that should make it easier to do the test fitting. Here's the part itself. You'll remember this. I guess it's been 4 or 5 months ago that I made this. I am pleased with how it came out, and especially that it's pretty clean. It's really not going to need a heck of a lot of cleanup work to do the paint and body work on it. So a lot of it's not going to show anyway. It was a nice casting. This was one of the original Model Engineering Services castings, and it machined beautifully. There's a part I'll have to fill in just to make it look pretty. Okay, so this cotter's already split. Now that everything's taken apart though, the nice thing is I can just test fit this alone to it, and I'll know what kind of washer setup I need, if any, to make this part fit just right. And then I'll probably make all the brass washers tomorrow, do the final fitting, and wrap up this video. And one more interesting thing, it's kind of funny that if you have been following the project all along, you'll remember that I WD-40'd this little stem to the base there just to make it easier to machine, and it is still there after all this time being jostled around and so forth. Pretty fun. I said WD-40, I meant JB Weld. Here I'm cutting off a 140 thousandths thick spacer to use in lieu of washers, so I can lock the Quorn ball handle that locks the rotating base into the tilting bracket. This should put the handle at the right spot. We'll see that in just a second. Okay, definitely trial and error. This is the 140 thou thickness spacer installed, and it's not what I'm shooting for. I wanted the ball handle, I mean, it starts to make contact here and it does put a little drag on it, but I wanted it to be completely locked and tight in the horizontal position that you see here. So it's not really locked for another few degrees. So what I'm thinking about doing, I'll make another spacer that's like 155 thou thick, and we'll see if that does the job. Take this off and put the center half-inch plug in place, and you can see the spacer there. It looks nice. It's better than the washers, but not quite thick enough. So let's go with 155 and see how that works. Okay, so last night I got this ball handle fitting about how I want it. This one, it was rotating too far, so I came up with an idea about how to judge the exact additional thickness to make it. And here I've got a feeler gauge, and this is a 10 thou piece of steel here, and I put that in between the existing washer and the handle. As you can see, it came out just about right about where I want this. So I'm going to take this apart and then measure the existing washer with the 10th thou added to it and cut off a little brass washer of that thickness. Okay, it's Tuesday night. Now I've finished 2 of these things. Yesterday I got this one done. I just cut off the excess of the screw so it can rock all the way. Excuse me. And tonight I got this one done. It's basically the width of a washer plus about 5 thou. The washers are about 60 thou, about a 1/16 of an inch. So I added about 5 or so thou. And it's just about right because this way it locks down. This is the fully locked position. And you can still see where the pointer and the scale are. It only takes a little bit to release it, and you can rock all the way down here, and then unlock it, and all the way to this side as well. So I think we'll keep that as is. Lock it back. So it'd be below the horizontal, below where the table is. I'll put the table in and just double check and see if there's any fine tuning that needs to happen, but I'm pretty happy with that. We can always shave off a little bit. I could just file that down a little bit if I want that ball handle to be a little bit tighter in towards the center. And this one is the rotating part. Like I said, I got that done last night. Pretty happy with how that releases. It tightens like this. It's almost horizontal and releases in the vertical. And then this can move, or the rotating base will be able to rotate pretty easily. So the nice thing is those both work and they don't interfere with each other. So now that I've got the center part done, I'll focus on these 2. Both of these are essentially 2 washers, and I've got some blanks I made up over here, so I'll be trying those and I'll show you how that fits in just a minute. Well, culmination of a week of piddling in the evenings, just an hour at a time, but I've got custom sized brass washers behind all 4 of these ball handles now, and it's working good because each one is adjustable and they don't interfere with each other. So, and they're all going to be in a handy position and won't interfere with the operation of the rotating table or anything else. So very pleased about how these have come out. Let's see, this one loosens by rotating it backwards. I'm not going to do that because it's not fastened down. So the next episode, or the next piece of the puzzle, I figured I'd tackle this now before I start the paint and body work. I've got that nice dovetail groove like the George Thomas rotary table, and these are the pieces. These are the outside parts that fit outside. Here's the actual dovetail pieces themselves. This is a set that's still put together, and this side I've taken apart so I can get ready to make some custom things. Well, the weird part is that the small ball handles, I drilled and tapped them for 1032, thinking that's what I would use for the holes, or around the rotating base. So that's what size these are. And these holes, when I went to make these, I could have made them 1032, but it would take up pretty much the whole center part of that dovetail. So for better or worse, whatever I made them, the size is 632. So needless to say, there's a big mismatch in size. I have a plan, which I'll cover in the next couple segments, about how to address this. But essentially, I'm going to make a hybrid screw that's a 1032 portion and then a 632 portion that sticks out and will engage the little dovetails. So stick with me, and it should be interesting to see how I can do that. The first step was to insert a 1032 screw into one of the ball handles and mark off the distance of it with the blue. That's about 300 thousandths of an inch. I'm surprised that the threaded portion is so deep in those, but I think these are a 1/2 inch ball, so that kind of explains it. So I'll make the depth. I'll just probably take this one piece and cut that head off of it so I can put it in the 5C. Then I'll be able to cut, actually I'll probably cut this off at 1 inch, a little bit over 1 inch. And then my idea is to put it in the 5C in the 3/16 inch collet, and then drill and tap for with a 632 and then cut off a little 632 piece and Loctite it in there to make a hybrid screw. So we'll see. Cut off a piece of the 1032 threaded rod, basically. The screw, actually what I did was I took the head off the screw and I cut off two pieces that will be the right size to go inside. The little ball handles. And now I'm drilling out. I center drilled first. Here's one of the pieces. Center drilled, now I'm drilling out with a tapping size drill, and I'm going to tap out the center with a 632 screw. Here we are fitting the V block, for lack of a better word, I forget what you call them, but the parts that fit inside the bevel, the V bevel, the George Thomas style bevel there inside the rotating base. So this is the dovetailed piece inside, dovetail nut, I think that's the right nomenclature for it. And here are the little handles. These are distinct from the others because these are flat. The orientation is flat along here, which I believe is how it's designed for the Quorn. If you can see this one, what I've got is a 1032 insert which is Loctited in place, and it's drilled and tapped for 632, which is the size of the actual hole, the threaded hole in the dovetail nut. So here's a piece that's got the 632 threaded rod sticking out of it, and I've been test fitting onto the existing one, and I came up with this rod obviously needs to be trimmed a little bit, basically the length of a nut. So I'm going to trim it and then I'll test fit it again. I'll show you how that looks, and then we'll be able to determine the actual size of the brass rod that we need to make. I'll bring you back for that. Here's some 632 washers and nuts and so forth that I'm using for the spacers, and this is the outside piece that goes around the outside block basically. Alright, I just finished test fitting the first of the ball handles that goes with the rotating base and the bevels. You can see I've got the threaded portion in there, and I've got two small number 6 washers and a little number 6 lock washer, and it's getting me the right lock position. I can crank it down a little bit, make it go a little bit below horizontal, but it's firm right where it is now. I think I'm going to go ahead and Loctite this in position, and then we'll see what it's like tomorrow, and if I need to I can make a custom brass spacer. This is the opposite side. This thing's not going to need any adjustments. You can see I had the threaded rod already glued in, and I've got one washer and one little lock washer in there, and you can see the little beveled nut underneath. So it's looking good. I'm going to leave this one as is, just let it set tonight, and go ahead and Loctite this one together. Alright, so here we have it with both of the small ball handles that go on the rotating base are completed and have been green Loctited onto where the threaded rods have been inside. So that's looking good now. That's perfect. I don't really need to mess with that. Let me take this out and show you what the next step is. Speaking of green Loctite, I do need to do 3 more. This one will not, because it comes off and it fastens on that rod that's part of the mounting base, if you will. So I can simply take these 3 out, take them apart, and green Loctite their handles on. Then I'll double test fit everything, and put my little keeper in position, flip this around. I'll need to trim the back. Once I have it done and the final perfect fit, I'll just probably use my Dremel tool and just trim this off, and I can round it when I take it all apart for paint and body work. And then put a little shape on this thing, maybe shorten it up a little bit, the rocking lever catch, and then I can blow it all apart for paint and body. So my plan is to do paint and body work on the base here, and then on the other parts of the base, which are over on my workbench on the granite table. So just those main parts, basically the 3 main parts, and I'll take all the hardware off obviously for that when I paint it. And then once it's painted and dried, I can reassemble and Loctite the rear bed bar into the base castings, and as well as Loctiting in the vertical column. So that's where we're at so far. Here's the pieces taken apart. So I took the rocking lever off and I Loctited. I used the Loctite cleaner and the 680 retaining compound. I green Loctited this handle in place, of course this one over here, and this one to the rocking lever. Split cotters, get a nice view of the split cotters there. So this is the hardware that attaches the center portion here, the 20-degree cones and so forth. And I hadn't Loctited the little brass rod in the center there that's used for that cone, so that's Loctited in place now. And obviously that ball handle is not Loctited. So now I just relax and wait till tomorrow, and then I can test fit everything one more time, and then once it's satisfactory, like I said, take that apart, dress that up a little bit, dress up all the cast iron pieces, and prime and paint. It's a very short update for this segment. For the rocking arm, I marked that out with some Sharpie marker, and I used a 3/8 inch radius, or 3/4 inch half circle, basically. Scribed that out, and I trimmed essentially just about a 1/4 inch off, and I made that radius more uniform. So, and then I adjusted the bend just a wee bit to get this up off the ground, and softened the edges with the belt sander. So pretty happy with how that piece goes. I'll just stick it over there for the time being. I've checked all the Loctite and made a good secure fit on all this stuff. And then the only other machine work, so to speak, that I've done tonight is I used my Dremel tool with a cutoff. I cut the bolt, the excess, off, and then I took this out once I had it to the proper length, and I used the bench grinder and belt sander to put a nice smooth radius on the back there. So it's not a work of art, but it's nice and smooth anyway. So now I'm going to get some, I don't have any or I would take it apart tonight, but I need to get a whole bunch of little baggy snack bag type things that I can put each of the individual ball fittings and the dust caps and all that stuff into one, and I'll label it the position that they all go, so that I can essentially take everything apart, take all the ball handles out of the pieces that need to be painted. This one can stay where it is, but the ball handle's already out. But I want to organize the hardware before I get ready to do the Bondo body work, paint and body work. And for the Bondo, I'm actually thinking of not using Bondo but JB Weld, because a lot of these castings are actually pretty decent, and I think it just needs a little bit of smoothing, kind of fill in the low spots. I'll take my grinder and grind off some of these marks there, the part number marks, but get them smooth and use JB Weld and sand that down and then prime it and paint it. But I'll do a segment on all that stuff when the time comes.